All right, welcome to, we're going to say episode 4 of the PPBDL YouTube channel. Uh,
3 point.
yeah, the lost one. It's out there somewhere. Maybe someone can fix the audio in a couple years. With me tonight on this Aloha Friday, we've got Jared with us again. The audio should be good. We're fixed now, so let's get to it.
Let's do it.
All right, so we were going to start trying to remember our live draft thoughts and comments. But we had several blockbuster trades today, so we're going to go through those three trades, and then we'll get to the drafts. We're going to start with the first one, probably the smaller of the three. We're going with Carter trading away DJ LeMahieu, utilizing his team option, which is once every 3 years you get to do that. But he utilized it, and he got back a pretty nice piece with Beast's second for next year. What are your thoughts, Jared?
I think it's good for both. Carter has no picks really at all, so this is a strange one for him to actually get a pick instead of give one. But DJ LeMahieu, dude's a stud. He was a stud in Colorado, and then hitting atop that Yankees lineup, multi-position eligibility, which everybody seems to covet. I think it's win-win. Beast gets a nice piece. I don't know if they'll be able to extend him. I have to look at all them rules, but
No, he's just on the 1 year team option. But still, for
yeah,
$1, you're looking at even if he kind of puts up 80-75% of what he did last year, we're looking at 100 runs, maybe 15-20 homers, and that on base percentage is really
yeah,
what's key. So
he's gonna hit over 300. It's a given. He's won 2 batting titles now, one with the Rockies, one with the Yankees, and then the power surge last year, 26 bombs. That's absurd. If he hits 20 plus, that's a top 3 or 4 second baseman.
yep. And it'll be interesting to see what Carter does now that he actually has a draft pick. Is he going to use it to go out and get something else, or is he going to try and hold on to it, seeing how this year's draft really had that depth in the second and third rounds? Maybe he wants to call up one or two of his guys in the next year, and he's got an actual open spot on his minor league roster as well.
Yeah, I think Carter's going to Carter, so I don't know what to expect. He could save that and have one pick, and just pick one, a random guy. Hopefully none of the guys we're going to talk about a little bit at the end here. But who knows? Maybe he tries to package it up in another trade deal.
Yep. I think for the most part, all of these trades were win-win-wins, as Michael would like to say on The Office.
I agree. I don't really see losers in any of these at all.
All right, so let's move on to the second trade, the first one of the day between myself and Ryan with New Team 4. I am sick and tired of having to constantly refresh like MLB.com or RotoWire news alerts to see what is going on with Chris Sale. I floated out there literally any trade offer, and I probably would have jumped on it. But the initial ask was, hey, let's do Kluber for Springer straight up, which I was on board for. But then Ryan wanting to take the flyer on Sale. I mean, that could be someone that comes back in the middle of the season, and now he's got a Cy Young contender, who could pitch well or who could end up going under the knife with Tommy John.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. He takes all the risks, but he could take all the reward. Kluber's coming off an injury as well. He just had surgery. Sale has avoided surgery for now. He's got the pedigree, and then you get the Springer dingers. So it's a win-win all around. He takes on some salary, but he had some space, and then you get some relief, even with that 34 of Springer that you're coming back. But I don't know. George Springer is going to be awesome. I don't know where he hits in that lineup. If he leads off, I think that just boosts his value even more. And then you got center field and right field eligibility, so win-win for me.
Yeah, the contracts on all of them were extensions this year, so they've still got their 2 years left. But Kluber 25, Sale 39, and then Springer 34. It does kind of average out pretty well. And maybe he gets lucky, and the Red Sox put Sale on the 60-day DL within the next week, and now I'm really kicking myself because that's the main reason I wanted to trade him. I wanted to get the salary off before this draft. I didn't really care about the extra roster spot, but yeah, having $39 extra for this draft, it would have been a big thing.
Yeah, and I think that probably played a factor for Ryan with trading Springer, because I mean, even before the amateur draft, he was floating Springer to anybody. He floated him to me, and basically saying I wanted to wait. I wanted to save the salary cap, unless, as we'll talk about next, unless I got a player I wanted. I'm honestly surprised you didn't jump on my man, Leody Tavares. Dude's amazing. 32 steals last year. I can't believe none of the league. Everyone's sleeping on him. So that's cool. Got a better return.
Yeah, that'll be another prospect that comes up and dominates for you early on. The last thing I'll talk about with the sale thing is, we've got these team options and the amnesty clause every 3 rolling seasons, and I'm sure everyone has heard about them, but I don't know if everyone's thought about like utilizing them. And that was definitely one thing that Ryan had asked for was, hey, do you not have your what was it called, the amnesty? And I'm like, yeah, this is the last year with my Chris Davis debacle for Cody Bellinger, the gift that keeps on giving. So I didn't have my amnesty, because that would definitely been something that I would have looked at, and I think that's something that could be used down the road if the Red Sox sit here and play back and forth where, we're going to rest him for a week and then we'll reevaluate instead of just putting him on the DL. So
yeah, no lie. Chris Davis, who's hitting like 700 plus right now in spring training, go figure. Team Hammy said he's going to bid up on him, so look forward to that. Yeah, I used my amnesty on Domingo Santana after I went big on his year, I think in 2016. I signed him for like $28, and then he's been hot fucking garbage ever since.
Yeah, and I think we didn't really understand what we were doing when we were doing when I was doing the amnesty the first time, because I think Chris Davis was on the last year of that contract anyways, so it was only like $7 or $8 instead of looking at a guy who's here sitting on my team with like a big anchor contract for the next couple of years. So
yeah, we'll see. I may use that after this year. I took a flyer on a starting pitcher with no options, which we got rid of anyway, so took a flyer on Nick Pivetta because I was really high on him, like we talked about before. Yeah. So he might be an amnesty guy this next year or so.
All right, let's get to the big blockbuster trade that just went down a couple hours ago, and I know a lot of the guys have already kind of flown the W flag for Josh and Team Commish here, but here's the breakdown of what happened. It was a 3-team trade between Josh, yourself, and JD, which is Big Mac. Pretty much swapping 3 stud all-star guys. We got Arenado on a $64 contract, and that was just an extension for 2 years. I saw afterwards that you were able to get a couple bucks back on that salary, so I think he's riding at 44 for this year, which is
correct.
Pretty nice. Then you shipped over Pete Alonso to Josh, so he gets the that stud rookie on that rookie contract, which is nice. But he did have to give up Anthony Rendon, which was the final piece that went to Big Mac. So let's talk about the whole process throughout the day, what was happening.
Actually, I honestly feel bad for some of these other guys in the league. Like, you and I were on the same time, right? 3 hours behind Arizona, and then, God forbid, we're 5 hours behind Hammy and, Beast, for example, let alone the guys in Texas also. So, honestly, like, I woke up at 4:40, like I was telling you, go work out with some of my troops. They wanted to lift weights before we did PT. And already I had Josh in my ear talking about this trade. We had some different players. There were some draft picks involved originally. And I'm real sad to see my man Alonso go. So I'll say Josh won in the control aspect of it. But I was pursuing a third baseman in free agency, which is basically what 3/4 of the league is doing. So guys like Bryant, I've already been told, or if he's 75, I'm going to 75. Guys like Donaldson, I've been told if he's 50 plus, I'm going to 50 plus. I just don't have that much cap space to spend on those guys. So this was a real win-win. JD wanted Rendon, I wanted Arenado. We had talked about it, but then Josh had spoken about doing a swap with JD. So then I was like, let's make this a 3-team deal. Kind of use Josh as the linchpin, and then we were finally able to pull the trigger once I agreed to Alonso going. So yeah, I think it's a win-win-win all around. This gives Josh, another power bat at the slot, and swap out with Freeman. There's some first basemen I thought are more attainable than third baseman on the market, and Big Mac gets his Angel homer pick.
Yeah,
so
I think
we got the.
Sorry, I think of all of the the trades today. Like I got Springer. Springer's been my boy since like 2016. Never really pursued him, but it's nice to have your guy, right? So now you get to watch Arenado, which you're doing anyways every single day. But now it's like, oh man, he crushed one, and he's actually helping my team. JD gets his boy Rendon on the Angels. At least I don't know how much he really likes the guy, but I'm sure he does now that he's on his team.
Right.
So it is nice to finally get a guy that you've been rooting for your whole time, and he can't hurt you when he does something well. So
Yeah, no, it's the same. That's a great point. I watch him anyways. And then it also helps that he's him and Rendon are 1 and 2 in third base ranking. So it doesn't hurt when you acquire that. And I think third base was kind of my missing piece. Boy, Ryan McMahon's had a hell of a spring also. Homeboy hit 2 home runs today. So the homer pick in me is just going wild. And I think these guys exploited that, obviously, because Arenado, he's a top 5 player in the MLB, top 5 player, by some metrics, top 10 in fantasy. So too good to pass up for me, and I'm okay with losing Alonso because I got Vaughn waiting in the wings. So.
Yep. That was one of my first thoughts. Was like, all right, he's a first baseman, yeah, and he really went ham this past season. But I think you can get a lot of that back with some of these cheaper first basemen. And you're right that everyone's gunning for the same 4 or 5 third basemen, and then the 2 teams that are sitting there that have the cap space. So it is one of those like, yep, go and try and get your guy beforehand. So I look at this as like our big acquisitions for this unrestricted free agency draft. I got Springer and you got Arenado, and you got him for 2 more years. So you could have ended up with Rendon, who's probably an MVP candidate, but he's on that 1 year his last extension. So I think you getting those 2 years and you're still within a championship window with him. So.
Well, that's basically what it came down to was would I rather spend 44 on Arenado or potentially 44 on trying to get a Suarez or a Donaldson or get outbid. And then it just was one of those things where I have the chance to get this control. I give up a guy with more control, but I also see some regression from Alonso. We're not going to see 50 bombs this year. I put some money on that. But love the dude. Love Alonso. He's 40 plus, but I also have a 40 plus high strikeout guy in my outfield. So getting Nola is a very sweet prize for me.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a more consistent hitter. I'm pretty sure you can pencil in 40, 100, and 100 with a 380 OBP and a 550, 575 slug. So it's definite upgrade. So.
Yeah, the dude's stupid good.
All right. You have anything else on any of those trades?
No, yeah, I agree. Win. I know the like you said, the commish coming in, swooping in, and winning it. But when you truly start breaking it down, and that's what I did. I would have did a deep dive through the whole league. When you start breaking it down, this really is a win-win for every single roster.
Yeah. All right, so let's rewind the clock back a week and revisit our amateur draft that I don't think it went as I was expecting. But let's just look. We're going to start with just the first round right now, kind of reviewing who the picks were. So the first, that was Julio Rodriguez. I made that pretty clear from the get-go. I think, the second pick, Adley Rutschman, wasn't sure what Beast was going to do with that, and as we were talking, we were both thinking Vaughn. So during our video, I was sitting here asking you, hey, what are you going to do at 4 between Rutschman, Witt, maybe Dominguez, and then all of a sudden it was kind of made up for you. Rutschman was gone, and then the third pick, Irby went with Dominguez, kind of part of his draft and stash, wait for Wander and his young guys to come up and then really take over the league. So Vaughn kind of fell into your lap at 1-4. What were your thoughts there?
Honestly, I try to draft not necessarily off of need or even ADP, but best player available. and at that point it was kind of ridiculous. Felt that he fell all the way to 4, and then I'll talk about my next news later on. But it's just it was one of those things like this is an extremely polished college bat. He's in the American League, so I don't have to worry about his defense as much as if he were an NL guy, because typically NL first basemen are a little more glove savvy than Vaughn is. But same could be said about Arenado when he came up. Actually, was it his glove was his knock, and now he's the top third baseman glove wise. So yeah, when Vaughn fell to me, it was kind of a no-brainer. If you remember from our draft, I was like, yeah, I gotta go. I gotta take this guy. He's the best player available.
Yeah, and then now that we know how the draft shaked out, it's probably one of those that made this trade for you tonight a lot easier. All right, yeah, I lost control of a really good young guy, but I've already got another one, waiting in the wings. So.
Yeah, anytime I can acquire a guy that plays at Coors Field, the bats play. That's just how it goes. Charlie Blackmon, we got a history of that. And if you want to go back, like Todd Helton, we're talking Larry Walker hitting 397 with 45 bombs and 130 ribbies. Like, bats play at Coors. So, yeah, sucks giving up control, but having Vaughn in the wings honestly makes that just that much sweeter.
All right, let's rewind and go back to this 1-2. What were your thoughts of Rutschman going that early?
I kind of thought it was going to happen. He's got all the hype. The more video I watched of him, the more I loved the bat. Like, dude's putting balls over the batter's eye with a wood bat after doing it with an aluminum bat. So I don't know. I have no issue with it. If he had fallen to 3, I would have been fine with it. If he fell to 4, I'd have taken him. I hate Baltimore prospects, but he's fucking good.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to pretty much read off the article that I had posted, but I love the pick. I love all of Beast's moves to get... The last 2 or 3 years, we're sitting here looking at his roster, and he's got all-star hitters. He's got pretty much an all-star lineup, and they were all, $30, $40. And he's replaced them with $2, $1, $6, $4 guys that are pretty much putting up close to the same numbers. So I think Rutschman was a great get, and that kind of solidifies, one of the weaker positions. And he still got Vlad sitting down in the minors too. So I'm really excited to see what Beast does with all of his cap space for this draft, because I don't think he needs to go super hitter heavy. He can get back a lot of the guys that he let go, but he's got guys that are already there replacing him. So.
Yeah, Simeon, that guy was 4th or 5th in the AL MVP voting? Like, that's absurd. Yep. And he's sitting there, $6 or something like that? I was looking at.
Yep, $6.
Yeah, $6 for Simeon. Matt Chapman for $1. I don't know how that happens. I'm paying 43 plus for Arenado, and then you got the second best third baseman for $1. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
How do you like his?
Real heavy on pitching prospects.
Yep.
Might need to deal some of those, to be perfectly honest.
And he acquired several of them, with a lot of his moves. All right, so let's look at what Irby did with 1-3, going with the super freak 16-year-old Jason Dominguez. When I did my initial top 10 video, he came in at 10th, and just looking at that dude, one, I don't think he's 16 years old, but two, like, he is a man-child if he is. So.
Yeah, he's got the Pujols syndrome, where like, oh yeah, he's 18. Or like Bad News Bears, where they hand over the handwritten thing with a $20 bill. Yeah, I'm 12.
Yeah. He's got the mustache full grown already.
Yeah, I love the pick though. Like you said, Irby's kind of got this draft and stash strategy, it would appear. Thing I worry about with him is if he doesn't progress as quickly as we all think the young phenom will, you might get exposed to the RFA, and you might have to start that contract a year sooner than you'd like to. But if not, if you have a coming of age with fucking Wander Franco and Jason Dominguez, like, that's a pretty absurd 1-2 punch to put in your lineup every day.
Yeah, and he's, just looking back at all the other drafts, he went Ohtani 1-1, then he had Franco and Kirilloff 1-1, 1-2, and now he's sitting here with 1-3 at Dominguez. So all of these dudes have the pedigree. It's just, man, I would love for Ohtani to stay healthy. And then, Wander, I don't know if he's going to ever be able to produce as well as all of his hype. But I still think, yeah, Irby in 2 or 3 years could be sitting at the top of our league.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the original video we did, I mean, Wander Franco could be the next A-Rod.
Yeah.
Realistically, that's what he could be with that 80 grade future value.
All right, we're gonna skip Hammy's 1.5 because that's gonna come up later on. Let's talk about the lone pitcher 1.6. That was Big Mac taking Matt Manning. We kind of thought this was gonna happen before the draft. We had talked about where we saw the pitchers going. We thought there were going to be some great second round values, and we didn't really know if anyone was going to come up and reach for any of these pitchers. So, what were your thoughts on Matt Manning being the lone pitcher taken in the first round?
So, I actually wrote it as a question, and I meant this to keep this with my other book notes. My wife definitely thinks I'm a nerd because I have a book of notes. So that's awesome. Did Manning go too early? Just simply because you're playing in Detroit? Yeah, I don't know. I thought it'd be 1 or 2. I love Matt Manning stuff. First off, before we start getting into it, yeah, big kid, going to be probably second starter in that rotation. But I don't know. I think he could have got him if he would have waited. But I mean, sometimes if you know, you know. Get your man. So I don't hate the pick. Dude has great stuff. Hopefully he's not a Forrest Whitley, or it's going to take him 6 years to get through the system. But yeah, I got no issue.
Yeah, I mean he was the top ranked or best available pitcher in our class, and it was a weaker class for pitching. I mean, I say weaker just because there weren't a lot of studs in the first 12 picks, but we're going to get to it in the second round and third round of some of these guys, some of the greater steals in the draft. All right, and I think the big run of some super stud young infielders. We're talking, I think it was at 1-8. Josh started with Luciano, and then Ryan gets the gift of C.J. Abrams at 1-9, and then you're sitting there and you pretty much have to take Bobby Witt at that point. Josh then came back with Vidal Brujan, and we had discussed, was Marte going to be there for me at 112, because that was the guy that I didn't say anything at any point to anybody about, and that was the guy that I had locked in at 112. And right before my pick, I said, like, hey, I'm taking Marte, and you kind of said, I think Josh is about to grab him. So when he let him go, I was extremely excited, drafted him, and then Josh immediately hit me up saying, hey, let's work out a deal because I want him. So of those like 4 or 5 guys, what were your thoughts on any of them?
Oh, I love all of them. I think the one I was lowest on is Luciano. Go figure. It was C.J. Abrams and Bobby Witt are just absurd. I'm not too worried about Abrams being blocked by Tatis. I mean, when you have talent like that and an 80 grade speed tool, you're going to play. They'll find a spot for you. Yeah. That's a great Padres lineup, up and coming. Luciano, I mean, I think is more of a disadvantage because he's going to play at Oracle Park, which San Francisco, unless you're Barry Bonds, is cavernous, we'll say. Very, very hard to hit things out. I'm completely surprised that Bobby Witt went to me 10 overall. I'm in I got added to a couple professional fantasy baseball groups that are on Facebook. Mm-hmm. I have a friend who does that pretty high level stuff, and he added me to him. So I posted my draft haul along with other people's, and they were like, what the fuck? How is Bobby Witt? How is Vaughn at 4? He was going 1 and 2 overall. How the fuck did you get Bobby Witt at 10? And it just went on down the line. So yeah, it absurd to me. I don't know. Some guys were throwing some shade on Bobby Witt in the league. I don't know if they've watched him. I don't know if they've read the scouting report. I don't know if they've looked at Bobby Witt at all, because the kid's got 30-30 power. Eerily similar to Tatis Jr.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of high school guys, right? We're going to talk about, one guy that's coming up that I'm pretty sure is on everyone's radar for next year, but I don't do a lot of super deep dive on the scouting. I just kind of look at the wave tops, and then I just kind of look at their stats. So when I'm sitting here looking for Bobby Witt stats, it's hard to find the high schoolers, and it's hard to find the Dominican League stuff.
Right.
So I think it is going to be one of those. We're going to see him in low A this year, and he's probably going to tear the cover off the ball, and we're all going to be kicking ourselves that you somehow managed to get another shortstop who's an all-star who will, hit right away.
Yeah, I mean, the scouting reports I was reading on him, and then even with that spreadsheet that I shared with you, he was like going 3 and 4 overall, and then Vaughn was going 2 or 3, like I said. So that I'm looking at these ADPs and these slots that these guys are selected in the professional, like the industry leagues, and I'm loving life that all this shit's falling to me. Bobby Witt, his bat speed is elite. Like, the dude can run. He's got 30-30 power. We're going to see 20-20 regardless. If we see 30-30, we might see 30-25. So, love it. Obviously, he's my guy. But yeah, that's just another stud shortstop that, maybe I run out of time with Trey Turner, and then I throw Tatis in my starting shortstop role, and Witt's my utility. So maybe I flip him. We'll see. But it's absurd. And the other guy I had noted was Brujan.
Yep.
I think the only person I mentioned Brujan to was Josh. Go figure. But he was actually who I was targeting with my 2-4 and 2-5 picks. He was going to be one of those. So I love that pick. What the Rays are doing is special. So, yeah, absurd picks.
It was when in Josh's podcast, was Brujan the guy that he was talking about that he had kind of reached out to see if he was going to get taken at the end of the draft, or who was that?
Marte.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Because you two are the only others besides me who I ever thought was looking at Marte. And mine was real, like, kicking the tires. Like, do I need another one of those?
Honestly, the only reason he ever came up on my radar was because I was so in love with Julio, and then all of a sudden, a couple of the articles ended up being, hey, Julio and Marte, the new faces with Clinic, or Clinic, for the Mariners. So, he's probably a couple years off, but hopefully he really develops into it. So anything else for the first round?
Let me see. I think, we hit that. I think the one surprise was DP going with the more majors ready outfielder. There are a lot of value here, and we'll see in the second round. A lot of outfielders were still available, so he may have been able to load up on one of those guys. Other than that, this kind of went exactly how I thought it would go. Surprised there wasn't a trade. I figured with guys like C.J. Abrams and Bobby Witt falling to 9 and 10, I figured somebody would have traded up to get them.
Yeah, I don't know what the time limit needs to be to optimize that, because I think 2 minutes is enough time, but it's one of those where we're all still either texting or typing in the chat, hey, I want your pick real quick. Agree, okay, take this guy for me. So I think if we moved it to like 4 or 5 minutes, yes, the draft becomes much, much longer, and you can make your pick if you know who you want anyways. But I think that if we had a couple more minutes, maybe we would have seen more trades as we saw these guys fall down. And to go back to DP's pick of Drew Waters, he led the minor leagues in OBP, but had like a 34% strikeout rate. So it's kind of baffling. I mean, if he can put it together, I'd say of like the top 10, when I'm looking at my site averages, he's probably got the widest range other than Jason Dominguez, because some guys just didn't want to rank him very high. But I mean, we've got Drew Waters. I've got some guys 10, 18, 19, and then I've got 43, 36, 38. So he's really just kind of a mix of everything. And if he does get the call up, great. DP's sitting there with a guy that's MLB ready right away, but he's going to need to improve on that strikeout rate.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was getting at. I think he could have got Waters maybe later on. I know he went again with Jose.
Yeah, he had Urquidy with the 215 or the 15th pick in the second round.
So I don't know. I mean, I think he could have got both those guys had he gone a little lower. I mean, he's still got Skubal, which is a nice prospect, but I guess he was targeting those MLB-ready guys.
All right, moving on to the second round. Let's focus on you had, 3 picks in the second round?
Correct. Yeah. Everybody that reached out to me about trades or anything, I had pretty much told them that I'm going to value the 2-4 and 2-5 almost like a first-rounder because they're back-to-back. I get my selection of whoever I wanted at that point. And I also told a few people that had hit me up about him that that's how I plan to quote win the draft, which basically our league decided Hammy won it, but that's how I was going with it.
I just think it was a 1A 1B, and I think you're right with having those back to back early round like second rounders. You're sitting there, whoever falls to me, essentially, you know, it's just free money right there. Um, yeah. So thought process on your 16 and 17th pick back to back.
I was pretty transparent with just about everybody that hit me up. I was going to take an outfielder and I was going to take a pitcher. I really liked Bleday. A lot of people thought I was going to go Bleday here, but I don't know how Riley Green fell. This dude's ADP in these industry leagues was 7. So we got this kid going 7 overall, and here I am picking him with the 16th pick. I couldn't pass him up. There's a couple other outfielders I liked as well, which I got one of them later in this round. But I wanted to really maximize this back-to-back pick. I wanted to make sure I got Spencer Howard. Last year in the AZ Fall League, I didn't tell anybody about him because, I mean, I'm sure you were tracking him. But Spencer Howard, oh my goodness, 137 batting average in 21 innings. Absurd.
we,
You know,
we don't need to go in depth because I'm going to go in depth later with my top 5 picks on him.
got it.
And
Yeah, so he was the top starting pitcher for me. If Matt Manning had fallen, I probably would have taken him, of course, just based off pure stuff. But yeah, Spencer Howard and that Phillies team's probably going to be pretty good in a couple years when he's up. And then Corbin Carroll. I liked him and Alec Thomas. They're a little shorter than most outfielders, but I don't know. I'm super happy with that. I wanted to kind of retool my outfield because right now my infield is really carrying my offense. With Gallo kind of just picking up home runs and Reynolds bringing me OBP. So I really thought if I pair Green with Carroll, I've got really good future. For the outfield.
yeah, I mean, I'm looking at my chart and just going off of all of the averages. Both Green and Howard were, they were 13th and 15th best prospects available. So you already had value there. And then Carroll, just another another bat that you're going to sit here and have control of. Let's go back to DP with the Urquidy pick at 215. So before this draft, we had talked about what I was going to do at 112 because you had a couple picks right after me, and I had talked about, man, I might just take one of the MLB guys already, Urquidy or Hilliard, and that was kind of where I was thinking if Marte wasn't there at the 112, just take the MLB guy now. You can control him, move him back and forth, or just have a stud right away. So, what are your thoughts when it comes to the guys that had a cup of coffee at the end of last year but are still minor league eligible?
Yeah, so I mean Hilliard, that was a dude. When you said 112, I was like probably way too early, man. To be perfectly honest, so hopefully I saved you there and Marte comes out because obviously being a Rockies homer, I follow very very closely. Hilliard's big power and speed combo. However, also super quad A type guy. I don't know where he's going to play. I don't know when he's going to play. I think Hampson gets more playing time. A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. Just roll with Hampson. And then Urquidy, yeah. I mean, I'm not mad at the MLB ready guys. I did that last year with Loaisaga, trying to take him, Yankees pitcher. Still hoping he churns out some good starts. But yeah, I don't hate that at all. This pick, I think he could have gotten in the 3rd round. I probably, if that was his goal, was to target a major league ready outfielder, major league ready pitcher, I probably would have tried to trade back if I were need the DP. This guy, and then just grab them in the 3rd round because he got his stud pitcher Screwball in the 3rd round. And he could have got both these guys and maybe retooled and got some more picks next year.
All right, we're just gonna show DP some more love here because I think this might have been one of my favorite picks. It's not on my top 5, but I would say it's my honorable mention. We're talking the 20th pick, Luis Patino.
I'm jelly.
And I think if you would have just flipped it and said, all right, he took Patino with the 15th and Urquidy with the 20th, it probably looks better. But at the same time, he got that guy. And I don't know if you've seen the GIF that's been floating around on Twitter. You need to go look and just search for him, Luis Patino, and he just has a smooth wind up. It looks beautiful. So I'm so jealous of that pick already, but
yeah. anybody that's going to play at Petco or Oracle, I mean, they're pitching in a pitcher's park. Those stadiums right on the water, you get that nice heavy air, and the ball just seems to die. And then it doesn't hurt that Patino's a stud. He was definitely on my board, but I actually was hoping he would fall to me in the third round, where I took Lodolo because I like Patino and Lodolo. But yeah, great value. You're absolutely right. That's a great pick.
Um, I mean, I'm going to talk about a couple of the other guys from the second round later on. But is there anything else that you wanted to bring up about the second round? I know you had what 3 of the 12 picks, so.
Yeah, kind of hit mine. I thought two last things. I thought Brennan Davis was a pretty good pick from Commish. And then Luis Garcia, kind of confusing onto what old Team 4 was doing there. But I don't know. I guess that'll be a wait and see what happens.
Yeah, in this round, I mean, I had talked about the overall for both Urquidy and Garcia, they were over 100 for available, but you just don't know what our guys are going to do in this league. They're so savvy on a lot of these picks. There's very few that I kind of scratch my head on, and Luis Garcia, he's been on my radar for a couple of years now because he's with the Nationals, but. I was surprised that, and was that new Team 4's yeah, so that was his last pick before he jumped back in with Josh at the end there. So maybe he just kind of thought like, hey, I want to grab this guy. He's going to shoot up the prospect boards this season, and then he's not going to be available for me after this. So
yeah, I mean after T Boom, I think the Nats system gets really really thin. I don't know.
Kieboom's going to be up right away too. I think they're going to slot him at third to start now that Rendon's gone. But Luis Garcia might be the top guy in their system now.
And that might not be saying much. Not saying he's a bad prospect.
Yeah.
Just confused me why he went Luis Garcia, especially like when you look as we move to the third round, some of these other guys that went after him.
All right, moving into the third round, we're going to skip DL Hall. We're pretty much skipping all of Hammy's picks to praise him later on in the draft or in this video.
Hall, I like him, but I think some of you guys are higher on him than others, than I am, I should say.
Yeah. All right.
So I got a note on him as well. But yeah, I mean, Nolan Jones going to Dodger, that's a great pick. Really can't complain there. I mean, it makes sense. Third baseman. I think we're all kind of seeing how the third base market is during UFA. How just an absolute shit show it's going to be. Because it looks like there's a pretty hefty dose of third baseman in this draft, or third base eligible, we'll say.
No, there definitely was a strong presence of third baseman, especially when you look at the other corner and first, where you had the only first baseman. But this was a very strong third base class. And I'm okay with where I ended up with Groshans. He was hurt all of last year, but he was crushing it in that first month. So he just, it's a small sample size, and I think he probably goes higher had he played more. But he was not one of like the top 3 guys that I wanted. And my last guy was really Nolan Jones there, and Dodger Blue scooped him up at the beginning of the third.
Yeah, and that's a good pick. I think it's kind of indicative of the climate of the league when it comes to third base. I mean, we referenced the blockbuster from earlier, which saw a first baseman and 2 third basemen all switch teams. So, the DL Hall pick, I'm actually surprised. I thought Rodriguez would have gone first.
Yep, I agree. Yep.
But I mean, Hammy overall, he had a good draft. And sometimes when it's drafting, it looks confusing to other people. But if those were his guys and he got his guys, then that's a win for manager Hammy.
Yeah, and to go back to the Grayson Rodriguez pick, that bookmarked an amazing draft by Beast, who didn't have a lot to begin with. Taking Rutschman and then closing it out with Rodriguez. Rodriguez was the 18th best available prospect, and he went with the 29th pick. So I think it was an absolute steal with that pick. So let's look at the next pick, the 30th pick. We got, I'm not even going to try and pronounce his last name, Yoshi with Big Mac going with the MLB ready or MLB starter already.
Yeah, Sugo. Uh, yeah, I mean, I don't hate this. I mean, he was playing Tampa Bay. So Tampa Bay, kind of a shit show with St. Petersburg and where they end up. But it's a good pick. You know, this is a major league guy. He's got him. He can stash him and watch him develop into a star, or we can start him right away. I think you're a safe bet to get 20, 25 homers and 80 to 90 RBIs. So, yeah.
When you look at like the last 6 picks in an amateur draft too, and I know I've been guilty of this a couple times. I think 2 or 3 years ago I traded to try and get the last pick, and I ended up with what was his name from the Braves, AJ Minter, thinking like, oh man, he's gonna close right away, and then it kind of flamed out. But still, to get an MLB ready guy at the end of it, you're either taking a flyer on some of these guys because by this point a lot of the studs have already been scooped up, or you're looking for that MLB ready player. I will say that I think of the last 5 or 6 picks, my favorite was Dodger Blue going with O'Neal Cruz. I mean, they talked about it on the podcast. He's a giant, but like I didn't think he was going to fall that far.
Yeah, another Dominican guy. I mean, what is he, like 6'7" or something crazy?
He's like a 6'6" shortstop.
6'6" shortstop. People talk about Tatis Jr. being 6'3", 6'4"-ish, and being big. That's absurd. I'm looking at Fantrax, says 6'7" shortstop. He's probably going to move. I would imagine an MLB team is going to move him. But yeah, that's a great pick in the 3rd round. I don't hate that. I actually have a note about your pick also in here. Your final pick, so we can talk about that whenever you're ready.
All right, we'll save that for one more. I think the only real confusing pick of this entire draft was the 32nd pick, Christian Javier, and it was a Josh pick that I didn't see any chatter that it was a trade, but immediately after the draft, there was a trade. So. Yeah. I haven't heard anything from Ryan on this, but my only thoughts is, hey, this guy he had, highlighted, flagged, was looking at, and he knew he didn't have any more picks. So he was sitting here asking everyone, let me back in, give me a pick, I'll give you a second. And obviously it was to get Christian Javier. I don't know anything about the guy. He's only on one prospect list, and he was like ranked 322nd. But he's got confidence in him. So do you know anything on Javier?
Other than the fact that he's not in the major camp in spring training anymore, he got optioned to the minors. No, yeah. Young dude. I think he's like 21 or 22. Confused me as well. That one actually Puason, the 35th pick. I was just kind of, I don't want to say indifferent on. It was just one of those like, oh, okay. Just a different pick. I don't know. Maybe he likes Houston pitchers.
Well, they can't cheat, right?
Yeah.
All right. Let's get to it. I know on the podcast it was one of the highlighted, most confusing picks, and that was my last pick, the 36th pick in the draft. I would say the only disadvantage of trying to do a live draft, video is probably was focusing on too much. At this point, we were talking. I had 4 or 5 guys in my queue, and none of them were picked before me, so they were all still sitting there with this last pick. And I had Sam Hilliard highlighted, and all I had to do was click OK, and I didn't pull the trigger on him. I will make the argument that Acuna is not as bad a prospect. I think it's an okay pick at the 36th, the last pick. I think he's going to, had he not been drafted, he would have been a much higher pick next year.
Oh, no doubt. So the note I have on him is in a Dominican league, 342 batting average, 17 stolen bases, 2 home runs, and word is on the street he'll be in the Arizona Fall League this year.
Yeah.
Third for about to turn 18 or just turned 18. No issues. You went deep for this one and went off name recognition, but this could end up paying off. You could have a veteran or an extension, on Ronald Acuna, and you could have Luis Acuna up on a rookie contract.
I I will say there are a couple like farm systems that I barely even look at, and the Texas Rangers is definitely on that list. I
Yeah,
would say like them and the Royals are probably the two that I pay the least amount of attention to. So, um,
Baltimore.
and he was only on what, four of the 14 prospects list. So I don't even know how I came about even stumbling upon that Acuna had two younger brothers, let alone this guy. So I think his hit tool's there, and he's got the speed. He doesn't have any power, so he's probably going to ride his brother's name for a while until he can really establish himself in the minors. But I was okay with that pick.
Yeah, I don't know about the whole on the podcast, the BJ Upton, Justin Upton comp. Yeah, I don't really know about all that. I probably don't really agree with that comp because yeah, I mean the hit tool's there, the speed's there. Now, does he add some poundage to his frame, and maybe he becomes power? Maybe he works on launch angle like his brother did, and then he becomes a stud. Who knows? But yeah, Texas Rangers. I don't really outside of Tavares. I don't follow their prospects too closely.
Yeah, and maybe it's the last pick too, right? So you get to see how all of the other available picks that like why didn't you just take this guy?
True.
One of the other guys that I had highlighted was Dalton Varsho, and I can't believe no one took him because he's probably the only catcher with some speed. But yeah, and we talked about I think what Hunter Bishop was the other guy, one of the top guys that we were sitting there surprised that they weren't picked. So I'm sure next year these guys are probably going in the late first, early second rounds. But or they're coming up and we're grabbing them off the free agent wire. But do you have anything else that you got for the third round?
No, other than my pick. I think my pick was listed as one of your top five reaches, just based off of draft value.
Was that
But
Lodolo?
yeah, Lodolo. If y'all did any deep diving on Lodolo, 6'6" lefty, college, polished, coming out of TCU, and he's getting accelerated starting at high A already with a projection to move to double A midseason. I was very happy that he fell.
All right.
So I'm a sucker for big lefties. What do y'all want?
All right. I try and throw the disclaimer out there as much as possible that all of the steals and reaches were just based off of the 14 prospect list that I average, and then where they're taken versus where they're available. Um, I honestly didn't know anything about Lodolo. I didn't realize he was that tall, but you see some of these guys like, oh, who's the Blue Jays pitcher, the super tall flamethrower?
Pearson?
Pearson. Oh yeah, Pearson was taken like 2 or 3 years ago, right?
Yeah, in
And
like round.
yeah, Hammy took him with the 30th pick in the 18th draft. And at the time, he was the 128th, or sorry, the 86th best prospect available. And now we're looking at a guy that's in the top 10. So it's just one of those, especially with pitchers, it's a crapshoot. Either they're going to get injured or, maybe they don't perform. But sometimes those late rounders are the guys that really, really do start to come up. So.
Yeah, and with the six picks, I did have one other thing that I had circled on my notes was I tried to be real balanced. And starting pitching prospects are really difficult to project. So I went ahead and I grabbed two infielders, two outfielders, two starting pitchers. I don't know if other guys break their drafts down like that, but I wanted to kind of be balanced while go ahead and retooling, banking that I'm going to graduate a guy like Keston Hira and I'm going to graduate a guy like AJ Puck. So that was my thought process behind that.
Yeah, I mean, my success lies with the outfielders. I've gotten extremely lucky with pretty much most of all of my outfield picks, but I think that first round, I'm just looking for high upside, and then the second and third, and whoever falls to me, I'll take. But I should probably pay more attention to who I've got. My mentality is take the best player there, and then try and work it out. I know I'm going to be in some trouble, which is why I traded a lot of my old outfielders because Acuna's not going anywhere, Robles isn't going anywhere, and Soto isn't going anywhere. So I'm pretty much set there. But and we'll get to it highlighting next year with I think you had the most picks ever in a draft with 6. So
Yeah, that might not stay if you and Josh have your way next season.
we'll get to that in a couple minutes. All right, so I had asked you before this video to kind of think about who you thought were the best picks, and Well, we're just gonna go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we'll alternate each. So I'll let you start with your fifth best pick in the draft.
I'm gonna go with Big Mac taking Matthew Libertor with the 18th pick. Um, just incredible upside. He was the focal point of that whole deal with St. Louis. I thought that was a great pick to fall in the second round, and it really fits kind of with what Big Mac is doing with his team. So I love the Libertor pick. I was targeting him as well, hoping he would fall, but that's how it goes.
Yeah, I don't know if he came on the radar after that trade or what, or he got out of where was he, Tampa Bay before?
Correct.
Yeah, so maybe just got out of the right system, and then that trade really highlighted. All right, is he getting moved, to Colorado after that, which would have killed his value? But yeah, solid pick. All right,
Yeah, his curveball is just plus plus.
all right. So with my fifth pick, I'm going with a trend that you'll see. Hammy's pick, what was it, 113 or 213, 13th pick, Alec Baum. Had Josh taken Marte, that was the next guy in my queue. He's got the plus hit, plus power, and he's already going to be up shortly. I think Philly, the Kingery might not be long for their infield, but Baum. Let's see. He was in low A and double A last year. He had 73 strikeouts and 57 walks. So this dude is just going to be an OBP and slugging machine. So I think that was a great pick. Um, Probably wasn't going to get pushed up into the first round anyway, but solid pick by Hammy to take him with the first pick in the second round.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't know if he stays at third, being 6'5". That might be more of a corner outfield type, or even a move across the diamond to first. But yeah, Alec Baum, great pick. Great
Yeah,
organization.
I think that really started. That was the top, well, one of the top third basemen, and then we had two or three more go after that. So who do you have with your fourth pick?
Four, I spoke about it earlier. I'm going Grayson Rodriguez, Baltimore, top 50 prospect, the third round. I'm guessing you're going to talk about the other pitcher that was taken. But I like Grayson Rodriguez better than DL Hall, although I think Hall comes to the majors before Grayson Rodriguez does. And that's saying a lot because I've said it before and I'll say it again. I do not like Baltimore prospects. But I thought that was a great value pick.
Yeah, so with my fourth pick, I'm gonna take DL Hall, and I agree with you. I was surprised that Hall went before him with the 25th pick, and then Rodriguez was with the 29th pick. Um, of all my site averages, they had Rodriguez as the 18th best available prospect, and Hall was the 46th best available prospect. So he might have just got a little bit of a helium bump there. I mean, he's a big lefty. He's getting up into the 97, 98 mile an hour for his fastball. Hall had a 13K per nine in the minors last year, but he had a 6 walk per nine as well. So I definitely didn't know that until I started to do a little bit more research. But he had 80 innings pitched, he had 116 Ks, but he had 54 walks. So I think unless he can get his command a little bit more established and solidified, I do think Rodriguez is the better of those two picks right now.
Yeah, and with command issues like that, you're going to see a lot of balls up on Utah Street out there in Baltimore. So, yeah, I mean, both those picks you could interchange them.
Yeah, I mean, you're walking that many guys in the minors, the hit the majors it's not going to get much better. So who do you have with your third pick?
Third, actually, I'm going to go with myself, Bobby Witt at 10. I was looking at the ADPs from 15 industry. We're talking guys like Eric Cross on Fantrax that we all follow. Guys like that. He had an ADP of 4. These guys were taking him at 4 overall in amateur drafts, and for him to slide to 10, that's just six positions in the first round, double that in value. That's basically I don't know. I'm amazed. I'm damn near speechless. He fell to 10 still.
Yep. And it might just be the high school, feel for him. Not a lot of guys are really trusting that, but yeah, I was surprised that he did fall. So with my third pick, we'll stick with your team. It's Spencer Howard. I I don't really care for pitching prospects, but this was one of the guys that I was targeting in this draft. Had he made it, a little bit further down into the third round, I definitely would have pulled the trigger. He's got a 100-mile-an-hour heater. In 69 innings pitched last year, he had 91 Ks and 15 walks. He had a .83 WHIP. Um, he's got the control, right? So, a lot of guys have the heater and maybe one nasty breaking pitch, but the control is really where it's at. So, I think that was, one of the better picks in our draft. He was the 13th best available prospect, and you got him with the 17th pick. So, definitely one of my favorite picks in the draft.
Yeah, mine as well. I don't want to belabor the point, but yeah, a 137 batting average in the fall league. The Arizona Fall League, that's where you see the premium talent plays. Your Trouts, your Harpers, your Arenados. That's where those guys play. So that spoke to me in my prospect biz. So super happy. I couldn't be more happy that I got him. And with that, number 2, I will give rare compliments to Ryan of Old Team 4. I think Peter Downs is an absurd pick in the second round. That the dude's a 2020 threat. He stole like 25 bases last year. Probably has a streamlined path to the majors with Pedroia having to retire. Great pick. I'm jelly.
All right, so my number 2, the last hammy pick that I'm going to praise. And I think my number 2 and number 1 guys, no matter where they fell in this draft, I was going to say were the 2 best steals of the draft. So at number 2, I'm going with Hammy with the 5th pick of Dylan Carlson. The guys on the pod already talked about him. I got to say he's got a better than 50-50 chance of breaking, spring training on the opening day roster. Now, hopefully he gets the playing time, but in Double and Triple A last year, he had 26 homers, 20 stolen bases, 375 OBP, and like a 550 slug. The dude is just ready for a 2020 season, and if he comes up and starts right away, I'm going to say he's probably a Rookie of the Year, top 1 or 2 pick.
So I like Carlson, and I don't disagree with anything you said,
but
his AAA stats remind me of Brendan Rodgers. But Brendan Rodgers is an insane prospect still top 20, top 30 on some lists. Absolutely demolished AA and AAA, like hitting 375 with 15 bombs, and then came up and was just meh. Granted, there were some injuries and stuff, but that St. Louis outfield's kind of a shit show. So I think he has a path to opening day. I love me some Dexter Fowler from his days in the Rockies, but no, sir. That's time to move on. So it's a great pick to get at number 5. I considered him at 4, but I wanted to play the long game with Vaughn. So, yeah, Emmy had a good draft. Carlson's a nice player.
Yeah. All right, who's your number 1?
So this is tough for me. This was a real big struggle between Manning, because I was like, this guy could end up being Strasburg or Scherzer, and actually Adley Rutschman. I think Adley Rutschman going 2 overall. He's Buster Posey with a switch hit, and all the control in the world. So the way Beast worked his draft, I think that's probably the top pick for me.
Yeah, if Rutschman didn't have that catcher association, it's one of those like, even if there are rumors of, hey, we're going to throw him at first every once in a while, just kind of the Posey model now, but he's such a stud behind the plate that he's going to get those 4 or 5 games a week. It's just I'm a fan of that pick as well. I wasn't gonna draft him first.
He's a catcher, so that's a premium position, because really you have Real Muto, Grandal, and then everybody else. And Rutschman, he's probably going to be up sooner rather than later, so you're going to get him all through his early to late 20s, and then he'll be on extension contract. So, he's got the catcher of the future. I thought that was a pick. It was just amazing.
And as much as we hate pitchers in Baltimore, I do think the Orioles' home field is a big plus advantage for Rutschman too. So
for sure. But yeah, I actually struggle with this with Matt Manning because he's got such a high pedigree. A little small, but I think it's Adley Rutschman would be mine.
All right, so my number one. Had I still had my fifth pick, I definitely would have jumped all over this. C.J. Abrams falling to number 9
That's wild.
blows my mind. And maybe it's just because I wasn't a big fan of Manning, Waters, or Luciano in front of him. I was surprised that Abrams had fallen that much. The speed and the hit tool on this guy. I mean, he probably won't make it to Franco type hype, but he's definitely going to be a top 5 prospect next year.
Yeah, 80 grade speed. That's what kept jumping out at me. I almost took him at 4. It was him or Witt. I was talking with Hammy. I was talking with Herbie. That's you go either way. I mean, I could say Rutschman was my number 1 pick. I could say Luciano for Josh, but C.J. Abrams, yeah, that was amazing. Him and Witt to fall to 9 and 10. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't, crazy.
Yeah, when Josh had called, or when I was on their pod, I didn't think this draft was going to be as deep as it turned out. I thought it was very top heavy with 4 or 5 guys, but looking at this first round, I don't think there were any reaches, and you could make an argument for every single one of these players to be picked a little bit higher than where they went. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens now that everyone seems to be really on board, and we've got this draft process for the amateurs solidified. What's going to happen next year? Are guys going to start to trade players for picks? Or are they going to try and acquire them? Or are they going to keep not really caring about the minor league systems? So
yeah, I think you're going to get a good mix of both, because it's going to be all about how you build. I know some people, like you with your outfield, you build with those rookie contracts, and I built an infield majorly now. I traded Alonso, but through draft picks and through that contract. So I don't know. I think picks will probably remain the same value wise. I think some guys will value them more, some guys will value them less. So I think it'll average out.
All right. Any closing thoughts for this draft?
I think everybody was heavily influenced by you, the resident prospect ranker guru, in their rankings. Because, like I said, I posted this in an industry fantasy league, and everybody was like, "You fucking cleaned up, dude. Like, what does the rest of it look like?" I post the rest of it, and like the comments I got were insanity. How did this happen? Who hates these prospects or something like that? So, to use the podcast, that'll be my worst of the week. Is y'all shitting on my draft.
Yep. So I don't have any more closing thoughts other than I think everyone crushed this draft, and you and Hammy probably were a close tie. I just like all of Hammy's picks. Like, those were the guys that I was targeting. So let's close out the 2020 draft, and let's look ahead to the 2021 AMA draft. We're not going to go too in depth with it, but I do want to start out with the picks some of these teams have. I've got 6 picks. I think Josh comes in with 5, and who else? Hammy had 4. So I think 6, 5, and 4 are the high guys. I've got 3 first rounders in this next draft, and you had talked about it briefly about you were looking for balance. Was there any urge to trade some of these picks, knowing that you had so many?
I had most conversations about 4, but then I had some. Those were the more wave top, to use your term, conversations. I had more in depth at 10, less talks but more in depth. I wasn't real motivated to move it because the offers I was getting were real true to the value. I'd spoken with Carter. I said, yeah, you can have 1-4, just give me Robert, because I'm going to take a stud, so I need a stud to replace. And, his valuation of 1.4 we didn't match up on. Yeah. But I think having 3, I would feel extremely comfortable trading 1 if I were you. Because having 2 in the first round is great. I think we're going to have some hangover from this draft, so I think there's going to be a run on picks. I think people are going to try to acquire more and more picks. But this draft is definitely not, in my opinion, as deep. I think it's very, very top heavy, in my opinion. So, but yeah, I'd say if you move 1 to get some good value out of it, I think you'd be completely justified.
It's going to be interesting too, because with Josh and myself really in our competitive window now, and we've kind of stockpiled all these draft picks. Are we going to start seeing some guys throwing draft picks for a win now prospect on an expiring contract? So I think having the 3 first rounders is definitely something that I'm going to look at. Post All-Star break. If I'm still competing or if I'm looking like I could really compete in the playoffs, maybe start selling off one of those picks. So let's see. Let's just quick talk about some of the college bats that are coming up for this draft. I think the consensus top three on most sites that I've looked at, we've got Emerson Hancock, pitcher out of Georgia, Austin Martins, shortstop out of Vandy, and then everyone's darling, the Torque monster, Spencer Torkelson, first baseman from Arizona State. The Arizona State. All right. So yeah, those are pretty much the top three guys, and I will say, having looked at a couple of lists, I think this draft is going to have a lot more pitchers, and I think we're going to see a lot more pitchers in the first round for our draft. So, any thoughts on those three guys? Let's just turn it over to Torkelson and let you talk.
Hancock, guy up there at Georgia, going to be a nice arm, right-handed pitcher. That was one that when you had sent me the list of guys you were tracking, I said, yeah, Hancock is nice. Spencer Torkelson, oh my goodness. I know Josh, alumni from Arizona State. I think Hammy actually is also an Arizona State alumni. I did a year at the satellite campus out in Mesa, so I can't claim to be an alumni, but yeah, huge power, monster bat. I was loving watching him last year, him and Hunter Bishop, the Bash Bros, as they were known. That was just Spencer Torkelson. I would not be surprised if Josh packaged up 2 of his picks just to make sure he got to the first pick to take Torkelson. I think he's going to be an absolute monster, and I hope the Rockies draft him, like we talked about.
Yeah. So some trivia: Torkelson broke the freshman home run record. Do you know who held the home run record for a freshman before him?
Andre Ethier.
Nope.
It's either him or Barry Bonds.
Barry Bonds.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Your teams, fellas.
I will say my lone tie to Arizona State about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, in a dynasty football draft. We had one Devy pick, and I drafted Jalen Strong, who I thought was going to be a monster.
So did we.
And he just never turned out for the NFL. So
yeah, one I'll caveat on that. I absolutely hate watching N'Keal Harry on the Patriots because they misuse the absolute fuck out of him. He should be Tom Brady's number 1 all day and twice on Sunday. So that's absurd to me.
And
yeah, Torque Man is ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, he's definitely going to be one of the top, if not the top, player taken. Someone's going to trade up for him. The other two to close out the top 5, Nick Gonzalez, second baseman from New Mexico State, and then I think it's pronounced Asa Lacy with Texas A&M. He's a left-hand pitcher and get up into the 98, 99 range. What do you do for college evaluations? Are you watching any college ball throughout the year?
Mainly, I'm on YouTube, to be perfectly honest. Like you, I work in an area where I can't have my phone, so we do have like ESPN and the news playing in the Op Center, but I don't really get to watch a whole lot of college unless it's on there. So it's mainly YouTube. Like when I was, for example, Spencer Howard, when I was looking at him starting pitcher, all I did was I started Googling highlights, performance updates, and stuff like that. So actually, one guy you didn't mention that I'm pretty high on is Kumar Rocker.
Yeah. So I don't know how the college system works for when you can announce or come out. He's not on any 2020 lists. They've got him as the top guy on the 2021 lists. So
2020, yeah. But he's at Vanderbilt right now.
Yep.
Big guy. So for college guys, college bats, it's a little more easy because there's tons of highlight reels out there. But yeah, mainly I rely on those guys that can get to those games and they do this for a living. And then I just basically try to get as much data as possible on potential guys I like.
Yep. All right. So we're going to close it out with one high school prospect This guy was I think the number one prospect in the 2021 draft class, and then he reclassified to join the 2020 draft class. And he made waves about 2 or 3 years ago in an ESPN like high school home run contest derby, hitting like 500 footers. And this is the big boy Blaze Jordan, and I think he's a commitment to Mississippi State. I don't know if he's really going to go or if he's going to come out. He I had heard about him a couple years ago because of that, and then I kind of had him on my radar for a little bit, and I think he kind of faded a little. But him reclassing into the 2020 draft class, I'm assuming that he's probably going to forego college and try and jump to the majors.
Yeah, it's so hard because honestly, like when I was watching him, he looks like a good player. He's 6'2", about 220. So I'm
That's being generous.
yeah, I'm 6'2", 235. So like, damn, that's a big ass motherfucker to be running around the diamond. I don't know. Honestly, this is completely unbaseball related. But the more I looked at him and like looked him up online, he just looks like a douchebag.
I am
Like,
100% on board. He's probably a great guy, but he does look like that guy that's super arrogant and knows that he's the best.
yeah, and you like he had that one ESPN special, and he's gonna fall off a baseball and he's gonna own a car dealership or some shit like that. But he just looks like a douchebag. But yeah, I mean, corner infielder, gonna have a nice bat. I'd imagine if he gets drafted high enough with a nice signing bonus, that he'll forego college. But if not, I mean, Mississippi State, great ball player, great ball school. So yeah. I'm thinking he's got a 7-second 60-yard dash.
I think it's the hair that throws me off. He's got like a baby face in the hair, and I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be drafting him anytime soon. But do you have any other high schoolers that you were looking at, or when I had asked you to look at some high schoolers, were there any that really stood out?
The only other one I was looking at was kind of a two-way guy with Luke Leto, shortstop and right-handed pitcher. He was on the under 15 USA team in 2018. Pretty far off. Excuse me. But when I started researching for this, they listed him as a 6-tool player because he has all the traditional 5 tools, but he also has a 95-mile-an-hour fastball. So yeah, that's kind of a flyer. Who knows? We'll have to see how he pans out over the next 3 months to see where he goes in the draft.
Yeah, the high school guys, there's a lot of those dual, bats, pitcher kind of guys, and then they're going to stick to one if they go to college. But yeah, I mean, and we'll, like you said, in the next couple months, we'll really get a feel for what's going to happen to these guys when they commit or when they get drafted.
Right. So, yeah, those are mine. And then, yeah, I don't want to get too deep on Kamar Rocker. Yeah, he'll get all the hype. There's one other shortstop international guy, but I'm not going to touch on him. So.
Yeah, I got 2 J2 guys listed, but I don't really want to go into it. I would say that I don't think there's anyone as hyped as Jason Dominguez coming out this year. So this might be one of the, down years for the J2 guy. I'm sure someone will come up out of nowhere, but we're looking at, what was it? We had Vlad, and then Wander, and then Julio. So and Tatis. I just don't know if there's that guy this year, or if it's all these guys have now been picked that there isn't as big a prospect pool there or not. But
yeah, honestly, I don't know. As far as high schools, just looking at some options that are available. Maybe a guy like Zach Veen. He's out of Florida, center field, or Austin Hendrick, and he's out of West Allegheny, Pennsylvania, right fielder.
Yeah, Zach Veen, he's on a lot of the top lists that I've seen as well. He's pretty athletic, pretty big build. It's just too hard to really tell with the high school guys what's going to happen with them, how few of them actually come out. But I'm sure 2 or 3 of these guys will end up in our top, 12, 13 picks.
Yeah, and like you said, they're hard to project. Certain guys I feel more comfortable with, high schoolers. One of them being like a Bobby Witt. Comes from a major league bloodline, if you will.
Yep.
So, yeah, high schoolers are difficult to project, but dripping with upside.
All right, that closes out all of our amateur draft talk. Got like 1 or 2 more questions, and then we'll get out of here. With the deadline to, I want to say, like, drop or solidify your lineup tomorrow, do you see any moves happening, or you think there's going to be more trades tomorrow?
I don't know. I think this league's pretty good about not panic trading or dropping or anything like that. Maybe one. We might see one. I'm not anticipating it being a part of anyone, unless the right offer. Josh Kalenic for Tatis, straight up, let's do it. Unless that materializes, but yeah, no, I don't think we'll see too much movement.
All right, yeah. I'm looking at dropping maybe one or two guys just for some salary cap relief, and I had looked at moving some of the guys that were on their rookie contracts back down to the minors, but then Josh had reminded me that the gentleman's agreement was, hey, don't bring someone down that you're gonna. I'm not gonna move Acuna down just to save the $10 and the extra roster spot. So I think for the most part, all of us will be on the same page with that.
Yeah, I think the only roster contracts I have down are guys that I'm not truly planning to play. Like a Brendan Rodgers, he's probably starting the year injured. I just had to start him last year, so I didn't lose him in the Rule 5.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we got a good group of guys, and integrity is key.
Yeah, I will definitely be proposing, like, let's just cut off all of this up and down stuff. If you come up, I think, yeah, Josh had posted that that was the original rule was, hey, if you bring them up, and then we started talking about let's do some team options, and we opened up Pandora's box with that. So let's close it all the way. If they're coming up, that's it. They can't go back down. That's my rule proposal for next year.
Yeah, that would change this league drastically for me. I'm sure other guys as well, but for me alone, that would change how I configure my roster.
All right, man. I got nothing else. You got anything? We'll close it out, and then I'll get this uploaded.
No, yeah, it's been a pleasure. This draft was by far the funnest, and I think everybody would say that. One, because the vast amount of talent. Excuse me again. But also because it took 28 minutes. That was one of my draft notes, was 28 minutes. So even if we extended it to 5 minutes, like you were talking about earlier, maybe an hour, we're talking.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a lot of movement with the first 5 or 6 picks. They're going to fly by in a couple seconds, and then yeah, you're looking at the second and then the third round probably is going to end up taking the longest because everyone's going to try and either trade out for a higher pick next year or move back up because their guy's falling. So I agree with that. I do think that we could probably add a minute or two at least and get some trades going.
Yeah. So other than that, it was a pleasure. Thank God I took notes because otherwise I'd have been forgetting. I'd have been guessing what I thought at each pick. But yeah, this is always a blast. And fellas, provide feedback if we're too long-winded. Let us know, and we'll try to tighten up the shot group.
I will say for the podcast and probably for the video, I'm sure everyone's on the same page. I am never saying, "Man, this is going too long. Let's wrap it up." Like the more discussion, the better. I enjoy it. And I think the next video series that I want to do with you is team by team previews of the farm systems. Maybe we'll do 3 or 4 at a time, maybe a division at a time or something like that, so we can get these videos knocked out before the regular season starts or in the first month maybe, and just go 12-1 who's got the best farm system.
Yeah, so looking forward to that. Definitely I'm on board because I started that last night with mine. Basically just where do I fall, where do I rank, how many on the top 100 do I have, so on and so forth. So, yeah, and then maybe we'll do a destination video next time.
Yeah, we should probably just take this to the beach and show everyone what they're missing.
Right, we'll do it with the beach in the background.
All right, Jared, thanks, man.
Yep, anytime.
Take care. All right, that was Jared kind of rehashing the lost video. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'll see you next time.